Cool. And again, welcome everybody for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here. This is an event hosted by Shine Registry. And before we get started, I would just, want to take a little bit of time to tell you a little bit more about Shine Registry and also about the virtual business shower aspect of this event. So for those of you who haven't been to one of our virtual events before and haven't heard of Shine Registry, maybe we are a platform for women who are starting businesses to ask for the things that they need in the style of a wedding registry. The idea is if you could ask for a gravy boat when you're getting married, there's all this stuff that you need when you're starting a company that you should be able to ask for too. And so we have a little over 275 founders who are on our site who are asking for everything from equipment costs to help get covered to network connections, to mentorship. One of the things that's really unique about our site is that we include monetary and non-monetary asks. And today, for Tamara's workshop, we asked her to reach out to the Technigal LA network and her larger Women in Tech network to see if there were going to be folks that we could specifically highlight for today. She's going to talk about 3 businesses before she gets started, but one of them in particular, Charlotte Clark's Custom Quest Consulting. I don't know if she's on the call right now, but she set up her Shine Registry profile recently, and we just wanted to highlight her really quick. I'm going to be posting the link to her registry in the comment section. We try to keep these events free, but we do ask participants to help participate in the business shower and help support our community. Oh, Charlotte is in the event. Hello.
Oh, hi.
Welcome. So this is her profile, and I've already signed into Shine Registry and selected a few things that I know I'm going to be able to do. I'm actually going to select one more. I think I do have someone in my network who I have more than one person in my network who's quit their full-time job, is doing part-time freelance work. So I'm selecting these to fulfill. I'm confirming these. That dog is just as excited as I am. So we're doing it. One of the joys of Zoom. And yeah, it's as easy as that. I'm posting the link to Charlotte's registry into the chat, and really just inviting everyone who's on here to get onto Shine Registry and help us support small business owners, particularly ones who've been hit hard in the past few months due to the pandemic. We are working on re-releasing our site in the coming months, and so stay tuned for that as well. But in the meantime, I'm going to pass things off to Tamara, who's, let's be honest, she's the one you really want to hear from today, not me. But thanks so much, everybody, and thanks again for joining us.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. You don't know how excited I am for this. Like I said, this is my first event of the month. I typically do a lot of virtual workshops these days, but if you don't know me, my name is Tamara James. I am what they call a technical evangelist, so I do things like this all the time, from speaking at technical conferences and organizing hackathons, you name it, anything involving helping developers elevate and become better developers, or just making their overall like workflow and experiences like a lot more easier and like more convenient. And yeah, so this is really, really awesome. I'm especially excited because of the Black Women Founders highlight right now. And I see Charlotte on here. And I am just so ecstatic. Like we said, we put her Shine Registry profile in the chat. So if you could, everyone could just click on it when you get a chance, and please just give away. And she has some pretty cool asks, like follow on Facebook, follow on Twitter, I believe, and just help elevate her voice. And it's really, I love what she's doing. So she was one of our top picks for this. And we have 2 more that I'm going to announce. And all 3 of them are going to have features in the Shine Registry blog as well. Let's see. So we have Charlotte Clark, and again, her business is Custom Quest Consulting. We have Camille, oh, I don't wanna butcher her last name, Chrysostom. Camille Chrysostom, I'm so sorry if I butchered that, but she has an application called Self-Center App. And basically it allows users to prioritize activities that they find fulfilling and work towards their goals a little each day. And she'll be having a profile pretty soon, but shout out to Camille. And the last one is Georgiana Wright. And she has an application as well called Your Convey. And basically what she wanted to do was create a carpooling platform, and she wants carpooling to be as easy as everyday tasks. So yeah, and just have a positive impact. So we will be linking all of their information in the blog, I believe, in the Shine Registry blog highlights. You can find out how to support them, how to be a part of their journey, and just elevate all the great things that they're doing in tech. So I'm really, really excited as a Black female founder myself, and you know, excited to just elevate what you have going on, and yeah, be a part of your journey. So with that being said, I'm gonna move on to the topic at hand today. Okay, let's see. Let me make sure that I have all these share settings. We just went over this. So let's make sure we have them still where they need to be. Okay. And we're gonna share. Okay. So I can no longer see the chat. I can see about 3 other faces on Zoom right now. So I need those 3 people to be the ones to tell me, like, can you see the slide? Can you see the slide? Okay, perfect, perfect. 3 head nods, good, good enough. All right, so like I said, Tamara James, I'm a tech evangelist and primarily a mobile engineer. You can find me mostly in the iOS space. And I am a founder of a group called Technigal LA. I'll get into it a little bit more, you know, in the next slide, but I'm really, really excited to talk about this topic right now, SwiftUI. And I don't know, I can't really see the chat, so I don't know how many people are like really familiar as far as hearing about it, but it's really, really been buzzing in, I feel like not even just the iOS community and not even just the Apple community, but it's been bleeding over into other developer communities as well. Super, super popular framework. This workshop is going to be for most of you who are maybe familiar with Swift and Swift syntax already, familiar with some form of iOS development. And if you're not, that's okay as well. Learn a new framework today. And this is to get you jump started as far as where to start, how to start. And so it won't be so foreign to you. So yeah, let's get right into it. All right. Confirmation, we can see the next slide. Cool, okay. Yes, so a little bit about my journey. I spent most of my career and pretty much the early part of my career as an iOS engineer before crossing over into this wonderful tech evangelism where now I get to build developer experiences and really, really, like I said, help be a part and build the developer community. And Technigal LA, which is, you know, the group that I founded, it started out as a meetup group for younger aged girls. I thought about myself in high school, and I felt like if I had gotten a start, like a proper start to that exposure and like STEM related, you know, just activities, STEM related topics, STEM related, just people around me, I felt like I probably would have been more confident going into it, and I probably would have gotten into it a lot sooner. So that is something that I wanted to create with Technigal. So we started to have like free, workshops where where I am, which is LA. We had free coding workshops, free design workshops. We had networking events, and this was all, it was great. It was for high school aged girls, and then kind of snowballed into just women who were in the middle of career transitions, women who were just trying to find out, what is this STEM kind of environment like? How do I get started? How do I meet other women who are trying to pursue this? And so we basically created an open and safe space for women of all ages to be able to do that, to learn from each other, learn from experts, anything involving like educational opportunities, employment opportunities, mentoring and networking opportunities. We basically kind of covered that basis. I also, this probably caught your eye on the slide. I'm also a singer-songwriter. Before tech, I was definitely embedded in the music industry. And, that kind of, tech kind of came in and, swindled me. And I'm still very active as far as, continue with music. And I actually have a song about code, and it's called Coderitis, of all things. And so you can, you're able to listen to it on Spotify. Where else is it available? Mainly Spotify. But I feel like it's on some other, some music platforms as well, but you can find it, Coderitis. Also, you might know me from the My Programming Heart Challenge. I dabbled in AR a little bit the late part of last year, and at the top of this year, I basically published what they call an Instagram augmented reality filter. And it was something really cool. Oh, I wanted that GIF to play. I don't know if it's playing for you all. But basically, it was like one of those, if you know, one of those popular quizzes that you use on Instagram, like which such and such are you? Which Pokemon are you? Which, the office character are you? And I created one that basically was for programmers, right? So which programming language is the true language of your heart, right? And so that really, really kind of went viral in the tech community. And so, it's still available now. If you have Instagram, you can check it out. I'm going to share the link after this, so like you can like get to it easily and like play around. And if you tag me on Twitter, I'd definitely like repost you or retweet. Okay, so let's move on. Make sure the slide goes. Okay, next slide. Cool. So what is SwiftUI? SwiftUI basically is a popular new framework that was released with iOS 13. And basically the sole purpose was to, create user interfaces in Swift. So basically a UI-based framework for iOS. And basically with this framework, the benefits are, they lie within you being able to create your user interface with code, much less code at that. And you can also do this with an editor, and which is also known as a canvas. Okay, so I'll kind of show you what that looks like. Well, what's so exciting about SwiftUI? As I mentioned, some of you have probably heard about it or seen it in terms of, other developers speaking about it recently. It was a big hit at WWDC. If any of you have watched it, like I said, it launched last year during the release of iOS 13. This year, people were even more excited. There were so many more updates and just, more, just more excitement surrounding SwiftUI. So this basically involves, again, that less code, less code, less code situation, right? I always say the best code is less code. And, also it being really, really easy to port iOS apps to other macOS and tvOS and watchOS platforms. So it wasn't that easy before. If you are familiar with iOS development, then you kind of know some of the pain points there. Everyone's so excited, but of course, we have to kind of address like, all right, so what's the catch? Like, oh, it's less code. It's used for creating these awesome user interfaces, but what are some things that I might run into, right? What is the catch? So some of the disadvantages really have a lot to do with how young the framework is. Again, it being only about a year old, super, super early in development. And because it's new and early in development, there's been a lot of skepticism with pushing, apps built with SwiftUI into production, and rightfully so. So I found that sometimes, the most minor version differences, let's say iOS 13.0 and 13.1, there will be crash logs that are really, really generic and not super specific. So, I mean, you should definitely be sure to test on all the minor versions and even on multiple devices. So those are some of the things. And again, with it being released with iOS 13, it's only compatible with the iOS 13 version or later. So if you are trying to build something that is still accessible for someone who's on, 12.2 or 12.0, it's not going to be of use. So those are some of those disadvantages. Those of you, again, who are familiar with the iOS platform, UIKit has really been the primary framework when it comes to dealing with anything regarding building the user interface for iOS. And so now a lot of devs have been wondering if the birth of SwiftUI would mean the end of UIKit. So basically the answer is, what is it? Does it mean that it's going away? I would say not right away. Not right away. We should expect that at the very least, SwiftUI is definitely going to increase in popularity over the next 2 and 3 years, which it definitely has. Just within the 1 year, I feel like more people have started to learn and adopt it and just really get on board with SwiftUI. But I feel like, last year I predicted that at some point UIKit might be deprecated at some point soon, sooner than we expected. But now I feel that, SwiftUI is going to become more popular, like I said, and UIKit will decrease in popularity, but you'll still be able to utilize both frameworks. So you should continue to use both frameworks. It is possible to integrate the two. And yeah, so they can basically work in conjunction and fill in the gaps for one another. Okay, cool. All right, so some of those things that might be a little bit foreign to you, even for us coming from the iOS community. UIKit, we are very, very, we have those data types really, really embedded within us, a UI table view, a UI label, a UI text view. Some of that terminology has now began to shift. It has become more simpler, more definitive. And but even though it's more clean and more kind of concise and definitive, it still can throw you off, again, because we're coming from somewhere where it was very, very, this was the only framework. UIKit was the only framework that we had to go by. So those data types are kind of etched in our brains. So, you know, by design, we're calling a UI table view UI table view. In SwiftUI, in SwiftUI, we would call it a list. So it's just as simple as that. So a UI view controller is just a view. A UI table view is just a list. A UI navigation controller is just a navigation view. And then so on and so forth. I mean, some of these might be like, okay, I can get used to that. But sometimes you can get a little bit confused on, like, you know, UI label just being text, you know, because text is usually an attribute of a label, right? So you have a label, and that value, that string value is text, but the label itself is just text now. So it can definitely throw you off. Some other data types that I definitely want to point out is the UI stack view, which we'll be going over, horizontal, which is known as HStack, and the UI stack view, vertical, which is known as VStack. We'll be getting into those later on also. So here's our agenda. You know, there are three main things that I'm going to go over. One is creating and combining views. Another is state variables. And then we'll get into dynamic lists. So here we go. Let's get to learning. So unlike auto layout, SwiftUI always produces a valid layout. So there's no such thing as ambiguous or you know, an unsatisfiable layout. So SwiftUI, you know, replaces storyboards with code. So this makes it really, really easy to create a reusable view and avoid conflicts related with, you know, the simultaneous use of the project, of one project by the development team. So everything we're used to is being kind of switched around, you know, having to use auto layout to basically format and lay out all of the different objects within our user interface. And then also having the luxury of having a storyboard to kind of map out everything visually on, you know, within Xcode. So both of those things have been taken away and replaced with SwiftUI. So instead of our main.storyboard file, which would hold our storyboard, now we have a content view.swift file. And this is where we're going to write all our code. And this is where everything is just going to be held. This is going to be the main file for building out our view. So this is what that looks like. So you would open Xcode, you would choose SwiftUI, and basically you see on our navigation view on the left, you see there's a content view.swift file, and that's what we have open. And this is our hello world, right? And this is our canvas that I was telling you about, right? So this one thing about SwiftUI, it's really, really just a reactive language. So you're able to get live previews of your code, live renderings, and this is really, really useful and beneficial. So this is what something like that would look like. So no storyboard, just our good old content view. So how are we going to build out that view? With stacks. Okay, so here are some of those stacks I was telling you about. We have the HStack, which is horizontal. We have a VStack, which is vertical. And then we have our Z stack, which basically determines the depth and overlay. So let's get into it right now. So here's our regular kind of hello world. And here's the code that we had in our original example for our content view. So as you can see, like there's no, for our iOS like community folks, there is no view did load. There is no like, there's none of that, right? None of that like old syntax that we would usually have. So we automatically start off with a struct, and our content view is built off of a struct. And then we go right into our body, which is just a variable. And as you can see, right, we have our hello world, which is a label, but again, we would define it as a text in SwiftUI, and then we would give the value for that text in those parentheses, thus the hello world. Okay, so here's an example of this, our VStack. If we want let's say we want two labels in our view, and we want one above the other. I guess the instinct there would be to write out one label, right, one text, and then write another text. And, you know, maybe depending upon the sequencing, you say, okay, so put hello world above I love to code, right? That's kind of what it looks like. But in order to achieve that top to bottom relationship between the two texts, we have to use a VStack, unless everything will kind of be on top of each other. So that same kind of logic there. First, you know, we can declare our VStack. Hey, I want a vertical stack. On the very top, I want hello world, and then I want I love to code. Now, I don't know how clearly you can see this, but this is how hectic it can get, right? This is how, you know, and this is just one view with just a couple of elements in here, right? So you see some things that have a top to bottom, you know, a top and bottom relationship. You see some things that have a horizontal relationship in there, right? And you see some embedding of the stacks in there. So at the very top, there's a vertical stack. So overall, there's a vertical relationship there. And then we have our SwiftUI button image, okay? And it's resizable. We set an aspect ratio, right? And then we have a horizontal stack, right? Then we have a vertical stack embedded in that horizontal stack. And basically within that vertical stack, you see all the text that are in that kind of like box. You see the SwiftUI, you know, the SwiftUI kind of like over like title. What do you call that? Like it's a top subtitle, okay? It looks like a small heading, but with like a size of a subtitle. Oh, so this is a type font. The font is of type headline. So let's put it like that, a headline. And then we have another text right underneath there, drawing a border with rounded corners, okay? And then we have that font as title. Now you can see there's a way to format this text already. So if we say we want that font of type title, then you see there's this bold and bigness, right? We say there's a title front and center. And then if we have, you know, a type of font headline, right? A font of type headline, we have the SwiftUI right over top of there. And so we go on and so forth. But if you can imagine, you know, this looks like one, you know, one blog post, like a listing of one blog post. Imagine we had, you know, 20 of these, right? And then we would have to kind of go into like ordering our code and creating models out of this. But this is really simple example. Simple but complex. So ZStack, again, we went over ZStack, which is depth. And this is a really simple example of what we would kind of go on with ZStack. So we have an image here, and the name of the image is white tea. And we have a text, and the text is in kind of over top of that, and it says women's t-shirt, right? So again, with the ordering of the views, it kind of goes on, you know, how you're writing it. Is it going to the next one? Okay, yeah. So now we have a different color for the text, right? For the women's t-shirt text. And we would just change the color by saying foreground color red. Okay, so that's basically how we would declare that. Now, if we can, we can do a background color highlighting the text. So that would basically be like literally like a highlight. So it would have been the default text color, which is black, and then the background of that text would be red. But since we said foreground color, it would define the actual color of the text. But again, with that, the hierarchy of how we want our different elements, hey, I want an image and I want that text right there. Everything is about you giving instructions, giving SwiftUI the instructions on how you want your views to be built. Here's another notable mention. So I talked about kind of the convenience and the ease of use in terms of, you know, having that live kind of preview there. And in addition to that live preview in the canvas, there's also something called a SwiftUI inspector right there in the canvas. And what you can do with the inspector is basically edit elements, which also has the ability to modify your code, okay? So if you can see in here, you have different options. So if you click on one of your objects or elements, you can, let's say, what are some of the options? Embed in a horizontal stack. You can do that directly from the SwiftUI inspector, and your code would update. So I feel like that is really cool. Again, less code is the best code, and any way to, like, you know, basically, you know, make the development process as convenient and as quick as possible is definitely great for me. Okay, so one thing about SwiftUI is a very stateful framework, right? So it relies heavily on the state of the view, and you know, everything is intertwined and connected with each other, whether that's a property, an object, you know, everything has the, SwiftUI gives you the ability to monitor and manage the state of all of these different things. Everything is based on the consistency between the state and the UI. And so that state property wrapper, right, the @state property wrapper kind of gives you the ability to do that with a single property. So here's an example. Adding state to a variable activates that state management, okay? So let me see if it's gonna let me play this for you. Okay, cool. Okay, so as you can see, we have a we have a counter there. Okay, so in our view, it basically keeps track. We have our @state property wrapper, and what's happening is it's keeping track of an integer, right? That represents the number of times the button is clicked in the view. And every time that button is clicked, our state will see this and re-render the view to add 1 to the integer. So as the view uses this state, we'll see the number on the screen update. Okay, so simple as that. Now, binding views. Binding views is really, really effective as well in SwiftUI, how easy it is to bind views and passing on your state to multiple views. For example, with the @state property wrapper, you're basically monitoring, managing, this, and updating within this one view. But what if we have a parent view that has children, right? And it needs, and the children, the child views need to watch out for the state of the parent view. So they depend on, the state of their parent view. So if there is another change being made to that parent view, the children need to be modified accordingly. So you would use the @binding property wrapper in order to do that. So that will allow the view to basically, get that, the child views to basically get the updated value and re-render those views. So here are a few key property wrappers. So we talked about state. So using state, if you need a simple property, you need to have a simple property that belongs to a single view. Observed object, basically it's for, if you have a complex property that may belong to multiple views, right? So it manages the state of an object. And of course, an object contains multiple properties, right? And an object may be shared across, the object may be shared across multiple views. And then we have @environment. So this property wrapper basically allows access to global dependencies within your project, such as locale, or whether the user is operating in like light or dark mode. Now let's go through dynamic lists, okay? So with UIKit, we would normally create lists via table views, right? And again, SwiftUI lists are created using a list view. So in this example from Hacking with Swift, we can see a list with an array of several restaurants, okay? And each time that closure at the bottom goes around, the restaurant input will basically be filled with one item from the array, right? And that basically creates a restaurant row, so to speak. So you see that restaurant row object there. So that will be creating a new restaurant row per item in the list. So here's another example of what this would look like, okay? So let's say we have a music app. So we have a music app here, and we need a list of genres in our music app. You can see we've created at the top an array of genres. Now, genre is not just a data type of SwiftUI, so we've had to go ahead and create a struct to create what a genre object even is, right? And what does a genre contain? So a genre will contain a string called category. and we'll create an array of different genres. And we went ahead and we hard-coded some different genres. We've got rock and roll, we've got hip hop, we've got R&B, and we've got gospel. Then we have a navigation view, right? So before in UIKit, we would have to create what we call a UI navigation controller. And we could also build this out via storyboard. Here, we just declare a navigation view, and we say within that navigation view, we want our list, right, which is our table view, to contain these categories, which is the name of our array of genres. And for each category, I want the names to be listed out. Okay, each of the categories to be listed out. And I need that navigation bar title for our navigation view to be called music. Okay, so everything involves just the logic. You're just giving instructions on how you want it to be built, where you want data to be coming from. It's just basically a very, very simplified process in very much dependent upon how you want your views and how you want everything to be displayed and formatted and laid out. Okay, that was a lot. Oh, I had a nice gift there. I didn't want to show, but that was a lot. Okay, it was a lot to take in all at once, and like I said, we've just scratched the surface. But we did learn a lot. Okay, so we scratched the surface, but the surface contained a lot, and a lot of great things that you would need to know in order to get jump started. So for one, we learned how to utilize vertical stacks or VStacks, HStacks, which is horizontal stacks, and the Z-stack, which is the depth and overlay stack, in order to properly lay out and structure views, right? We learned a few key differences between UIKit and SwiftUI. We've learned that SwiftUI is a reactive framework that is stateful, okay? And with that, we learned 4 different property wrappers that allow us to manage and store our state. And we also learned how to create a simple list view to display dynamic items. So you learned all of that. Also, I know this will make a lot of my web devs happy who are just in the workshop to be nosy. No, I'm just kidding. All of my web devs who are really curious and trying to figure out maybe if this is something that they might want to dabble into. Well, I have great news. SwiftUI is now able to be integrated with React Native. So for those of you who are into React Native and are really looking forward to integrating SwiftUI and learning SwiftUI, now you can work it into your workflow. I haven't had experience with personal experience with integrating the two, but yeah, it's just great to even see this kind of advancement and support with SwiftUI. So we've scratched the surface, and now it's time for you to go and learn more. Learn more. There's so much more, especially again with the update, the releasing of iOS 14. There are new property wrappers to make sure that you have the most convenient and precise and legible experience when it comes to building with SwiftUI. And you can look at and you can learn all those things via the Apple documentation. You can go to raywinderlich.com, it's my favorite site, And you can also check out appcoda.com. One of the screenshots that I show with the dynamic lists came from hackingwithswift.com, which is managed by a friend of mine, Paul Hudson. And he also runs a kind of online, like virtual, I don't know what to call it, a campaign, but more so like a movement. So if you're a part of like the Code Newbies or 100 Days of Code or 100 Days of Projects kind of movement, this is similar, but just 100 Days of Swift. Oh no, why doesn't my image want to show? Okay, I'll show you, I guess, after the presentation. But basically, and this is kind of good because I can give a little bit of suspense. What was the image? Why is Oprah involved? Why is there a celebration? Well, basically, I am giving a live training on O'Reilly.com. So basically, all of the attendees that have attended this workshop today, all of you will be emailed and you will receive a 30-day free trial link to subscribe to the O'Reilly online learning platform. And that will allow you to be able to not only have access to all that, the plethora of learning content that O'Reilly has, but you'll be able to register for my free live training on all things Swift. So if you need an introduction to Swift, you want to get a little bit deeper into Swift, you want to learn about other things that Swift might have to offer. What about Swift with machine learning? What about Swift on the server? There are so many different things, and I will be covering all of those things and more with this live training with O'Reilly, and all of you will be receiving that link to join the O'Reilly platform. So yay! And thank you so much. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at Tamara J. I really, really love when I give workshops and people either quote my presentations or just have any sort of feedback or commentary. I'm so into that. And I hope that I see you all on Twitter. Also on Twitch, I'll be doing my first live stream this week on Twitch. So if you want to go and follow me on Twitch and you want to be a part of that live stream, part of the chat, say, hey, I came from the workshop in the chat, and I'll give you a shout out in the stream. If you want to go there, it's twitch.tv/Tamara J. And that is all I have for you all. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I often say that like one of the best parts of working on Shine Registry is that it gives me an excuse to meet really cool and interesting people who are doing interesting things. And I think an extension of that is these workshops have been such an exciting experience, just like hearing people talk about their areas of expertise. So thank you for doing this workshop. Do we have time for questions? I think we have a little less than 10 minutes. How are you feeling about questions?
Questions, yes. I'm gonna look in the chat. Hold on.
Awesome.
Let's
Great.
do Q&A. I'm gonna stop sharing here.
If folks have questions they want to put in the chat, that's great. This is also a fairly manageable group. If you want to raise your hand and ask a question that way, you're also more than welcome. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on the chat. If folks are like kind of like formulating their questions now though, I know for me, I'm not someone with a technical background, but I've sort of like dipped my toe a few times into these like online learning platforms and these like coaching platforms for learning how to code, or these like free syllabuses that like I found online in a few places. Do you have any advice for folks who are just getting started, whether it's like coding for the first time or learning a new language, of like how to stay motivated or how to find communities that can help them stay motivated?
Helping you stay motivated when learning. I think the best thing is, first of all, we are all our own like worst critics, thus imposter syndrome. But yeah, I think the one thing that I want everybody to keep in their heads is like, no matter what you're learning and no matter what level you're on, like most of us don't know what we're doing. Like that's like, how they say, when you get nervous or stage fright, they say, imagine everyone's doing something weird or looking weird, and that kind of helps. Yeah, like it's kind of like that same analogy there. Like really take in the fact that everyone is new to something. Someone is struggling. Someone is faking it. Someone is, and we're all just learning, whatever level that we're on. So stay motivated in that. Take your failure as motivation as well. Meaning if you are trying something, your code is not working, and you're just like, oh, this is supposed to work. Like really take pride in that. Like we're so frustrated as programmers. But we live for those 5 minutes where something works and everything works as it should, and we've learned so much in that process, right? So we learned what that means, what not to do. Sometimes it's not even us, it's the compiler, and we're overthinking it. So we learn, and so we live for that 5 minutes, that rush of just like accomplishment and knowing that validity of just like, this is something that I built. It works. And I worked hard for this. And I deserve this 5 minutes, and then work and go right back into the zone of learning something else and struggling through that. So there's so much like happiness in the struggle in itself. Someone said, oh, this is my friend from the In Color conference. Hey. Oh, and hey, Mark. Hey. And the question is, can SwiftUI be integrated with React or just React Native? Can it be integrated with React.js? I am not sure. And I would imagine that it would just work with React Native for right now. Being as though React Native is mostly being used when it comes to iOS development. So I would imagine SwiftUI is, the use of SwiftUI is to aid in that process. So a lot of times if you use React Native as opposed to native like Swift, and just the whole, native Apple platform, then SwiftUI is basically to aid out and fill in those gaps of what you might be missing, whether it's some of those data types and just some of those losses that you take from using another route as opposed to building with Swift natively. So I think React Native probably makes the most sense, but I'm not sure if it works just with React.js.
Hey, Tamir, is it okay if I ask a question?
Sure.
I was curious because I've used Xcode before. How does that differ from working with SwiftUI? Is that like a separate library, or how is that exactly? You might have gone over this and I just didn't know.
Absolutely. And you know what? I would be happy to quickly show you okay.
Cool, thank you.
Of course. We've got just enough time. Okay. So I'm going to open up Xcode right now, and I have the latest version. Xcode 12.3, I think, is the beta, right? So I'm going to go ahead and share this with you. Hold on. Okay. Can you see Xcode?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So when you first open up your Xcode project, right, you're going to click on Application. Next. Okay. Then interface here, right? So usually, right, we would go, you would have storyboard automatically selected. So for this interface section, all you would do is choose SwiftUI instead, and then you would name your application, you know, my Swift app or something, or my SwiftUI app. Okay, or whatever you want to name your application. Click on next, blah, 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 on desktop. Okay. Okay, bring your shared window to the front. Let's see if we can. Hold on, I don't think you can see that. Hold on a second.
Yeah, we just have the choose options for your project file.
Okay. Let's see. Go back to stop share, go to Xcode, boom. Okay, can you see?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what it looks like when it opens up. After you've named it and you say, I want to, you know, save wherever your desktop documents, whatever folder, then you see your content view is the first thing that opens up, right? So usually on your navigation view over here on the left, you would have your main.storyboard file. You would have your first view controller file, right? Yeah. Instead, you just have this content view over here. And this is the canvas over here. I'm gonna kind of close this part out so you can see the canvas. Let me see, and it starts out with a hello world, that hello world example that I showed. And it's taking a minute just because Zoom is running and blah, blah, blah. And this is where it's rendered here, okay? And another thing is, you know, in Storyboard, we would have the preview option kind of like down below where you would kind of set your constraints down below the Storyboard, if you know what I'm speaking about.
Yeah, yeah.
And so instead of that, they've set the previews here at the top where we usually kind of run our applications. You can also run the live previews on the different devices over here as well. So right now, weirdly, they have the iPod Touch 7th generation as an option. Yeah, so you can kind of see it laid out here. So one thing I love is that auto layout is kind of out of the picture for SwiftUI. Like, I was the worst at auto layout. Still not, I mean, I've been in iOS for years and still, you know, auto layout just really gets under my skin. I've used different libraries to like help out with that, like SnapKit and so on and so forth. But yeah, so once this decides to render, it's going really slow. But that's where you would see the application like preview and all the live rendering. So if I wanted to do another text or whatever text and say, we love Shine Registry. We love Shine Registry. Okay, that would show up, right? That would show up with the hello world. And again, because I didn't use any kind of like formatting, and I wish this would kind of hurry up and render, but I think it's just because we're running Zoom and everything's like being weird. But everything would just be kind of like on top of each other, like running into each other, just because we didn't declare how we wanted it laid out. We didn't say we wanted a vertical stack. We didn't say we wanted side by side in the HStack. We didn't say, we just didn't say. So it's very literal and very just reactive in that way. Okay,
Oh, there
now
it
it's
is.
showing me two things. Now it's showing me two things. And it's not scrolling. This is scrolling. This is not. Okay, yeah, this is being weird. Okay. But yeah, but that's the idea.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let me see. Let me see. Do we have one more question and then we can like jet?
If not, so we are, oh, sorry.
The only other
There is
question.
one more question. Okay.
Yeah, just one more question. How do we access the recording?
Yeah, great question. Great last question. So we are going to be taking the recording and putting it up on our YouTube channel, Shine Registry's YouTube channel. We'll make sure to send a link to everybody who RSVP'd. And if you sign up for our mailing list and all of that on our site, you'll also get updates about that and all the other events that we do, which aren't always developer focused, but they are always fun. So there's that. I am putting Charlotte's registry profile in the chat once again. If you hadn't had a chance to yet, please do check it out. Charlotte Clark is the founder of Custom Quest Consulting. She's a full stack software engineer based in Kansas City, Missouri. And we encourage all of our attendees of our workshops to support folks on Shine Registry as a way of paying it forward after a free event. And thank you so much for joining us today from all over too. I wanted to say thank you for joining us this afternoon, but there are too many time zones for that to be relevant for everybody. But we're a little over our allotted time. And so thank you again and hope to see you at future events.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes.